be a little red thing like that. Hi everyone, very happy to be live with Samantha. Do you want to start us off with an introduction to you and your book?
Yeah, so my name is Samantha Dooey-miles. Last week, my debut novel, Under the Hammer, was published, and it is about a woman in Hamilton, which is my hometown in Scotland, who is down on her luck, has no job, her boyfriend has left her for her best friend, she's stuck at home trying to figure out how to pay her rent, and she is obsessed with a daytime TV show about home renovation and people becoming landlords. And it is in that mix that she decides that her landlord is the reason that all of her problems have started. And when he comes to her house and dies while he's doing a repair, that sets something off in her that makes her think that what would make her feel better is more landlords dead or punished. And that is the rest of the novel, is her having her revenge on the landlords of Hamilton and the surrounding areas. And she ends up picking her potential victims from the TV show that she is obsessed with.
Yeah, I did love that because it's very much like a well, you can think about like it's got a made up name, hasn't it? But there's so many daytime TV shows it could be.
Yeah, and you know, what I found really interesting is it's the kind of program that, as a viewer, when you're, when I was on maternity leave or when I was a student and I was watching daytime TV all of the time, the way that Gemma is in the book, you don't really think about the people at the end of it. You just are like, oh yeah, that person's going to make £700 a month on that flat. That's great. And this is kind of, she is both the viewer of the programme, but because she is somebody who's renting a flat that has also appeared on the programme, she discovers through her binge watching of it, she is showing you what happens at the other side if the person who's making that profit is not a very nice person.
Yes, because in hers, the sort of fixing up hasn't been done very well, has it?
Yeah. And I think that's quite a universal tale for people who rent, that you move in somewhere and it might be freshly painted, but then, have they painted just over the old wallpaper? Is there mould creeping through? Are things in good order? And often when you watch those programs, they're really focused on, we're going to make a profit here. So we want to put as little money as possible into the house that we're then going to make all of our money from. And that's certainly the situation that she's in, that on the TV programme, she sees her own landlord say that they got an electrician in to fix the electrics because that sounds good for the TV. But in reality, he did a botched job and he dies fixing that botched job.
Yes, which happens very early on, doesn't it? That's not like a big spoiler.
No.
Saying that.
No, that is definitely not a spoiler. And hopefully, even if you know that it's coming, you will be excited to know that that man is going to die. Because he's the little bits that we see of him, I think he's quite annoying. It was certainly that was the feeling I had for him when I was writing him.
I mean, I don't know that I was excited that he was going to die. I mean, you can sort of see that he's annoying, and I think it's interesting because, she does sort of go on then on a mission of things that you probably wouldn't do yourself.
Yeah. Yes, no, personally, I wouldn't do those things either. But she is acting out sort of on her worst impulses. She's the moment that we meet her, where everything's sort of, her life is just at rock bottom, it kind of breaks her in a way that this actually becomes very logical to her. Everything that follows to her is like, oh, I feel a little bit better, I'm going to keep doing some more of that. And it also sort of counteracts that her ex-boyfriend who ran off with her best friend, he's the sort of person who tries to create social justice by, posting things on Twitter and maybe sharing a poll or a petition with his friends and thinks that he's really doing something for society. And she's like, well, I'm actually doing stuff. Look, I'm better than you, ex-boyfriend, because I'm out here, I'm making a change in the housing crisis, which is, unhinged. But at the point that we find her, hopefully as a reader, you will believe that she could want to do that, and it does make sense to her in that moment, even if if you were to sit and explain it to her, she maybe would not agree that it made perfect sense.
Yeah. Leslie, who's watching, says that she loves books like this, people doing things that she wouldn't dare to.
Oh, good. That's it's definitely not sort of a how to fix the housing crisis book, but I think there's two things. I think it taps into, she's just an angry woman who's just doing the thing that makes sense to her in that moment, like we've talked about. But also, sorry, my daughter laughed and it really distracted me from the other room. What was I missing? And the other thing is, she is seeing these people making all this money and she feels like they are just running away, like the haves and the have-nots. She really feels like she's helping them experience the pain that the renters are doing. She's really, she really thinks that she's doing some good. So while it is unhinged and she is being very angry, at her core, she thinks she is doing a helpful, good act for society. And hopefully the fact that that it's based in her being happy or hoping to help society makes you sort of root for her.
This seems to be quite a recurring theme at the moment in like a lot of crime books that I've been reading, like that sort of idea that people are being kind of priced out of certain areas, or like there's not enough new housing in places for people to be able to afford to buy or live in a place. Is that like, I mean, that doesn't, like where I live, I don't think it's as big a problem, but like it does seem to be in certain areas.
Yeah, I think so. When I got the idea for the book, I lived in London, so I think we can all agree that is somewhere that's difficult to buy or rent a property. And I lived there for 13 years, and the first flat that I could afford there, was like the size of my bathroom now. And I don't live in a very luxurious house now. It was the smallest flat in the world, and it was a studio, and it cost £600 a month. And by the time I then got a bit older and was talking to a colleague about this, he was like, that sounds like a great deal. Like it's just always going up and up and up. Hamilton, where I live, is quite close to Glasgow. There's not an awful lot of new flats or small starter homes getting built here. So if you're somebody who is living alone or as a couple, it's really competitive to get somewhere that is both nice and affordable. And I think that is certainly in the central belt of Scotland, that's quite a universal story as to what the situation is like. And I do think that even for people who have got the means to buy somewhere, it's getting more competitive, it's getting harder. I think it's quite, I know you're saying it's not like that in your area currently, but I do think that for a lot of people, it is just hard to get somewhere nice to live.
I don't think it's as bad in my area. Like I live in Yorkshire, so I don't think it's like, I think the housing's still reasonably priced.
Yeah, I mean that's nice and very lucky. I think you're maybe the first person in the whole time I've been talking about the book who's had that experience. So that's good. I'm pleased. That's what it should be like. You should be able to buy a nice house.
I mean, to be fair, I just lived in my house for a really long time, but like I do think like the rental prices aren't like ridiculous.
Yeah, renting in Hamilton is crazy. I'm very glad I don't have to do that. It's to get for what you get and the money that you have to spend on it. It's so much more than a mortgage. And I think that's also the thing is that so many renters are unable to save up to buy something if that's something they want to do because they're giving all of their money to their landlord. And that's, I think, a feeling that Gemma has tapped into. And you're right, you're saying that there's other books that are like that. And there was like an article a couple of weeks ago in Stylist calling my book was amongst them Fright Move. So like as an emerging genre of books where the property market and the housing crisis has made all these characters act crazy. So I think there's definitely something that I wasn't aware of it when I was writing it. I thought this was my not my unique experience, but just I thought, oh, I've not seen a book like this. And obviously dotted around the country were other people going, I've not seen a book like this. This is the one I'm going to write.
It's just it's been a theme in. I don't know that there's a book essentially exactly like yours, but it's been a theme in Marion Todd's latest book.
I've not read it.
With something similar. Hers is set around St Andrews. So
Okay.
I've interviewing JP Delaney on Wednesday, and his latest book, The Move, kind of has that idea of like, you buy a house and not everything is as it seems.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that,
and then there's your book, and then there's something else I've read recently as well that's kind of got that theme in. So
yeah. It's clearly just a pressure that's been building around people to create that sort of inspiration about what am I going to write for. I'd written one book, I knew I was going to write the next book, and the next book was Under the Hammer. And I thought, oh, I've got to write this now, because this was still when we had our last government in. And I thought, because if we get a new government in, they might change housing and it might become so much easier for people. And so I was like, oh, this is the idea I'm going to write now, because it might be the one that goes away quickest. And it's not proven to be the case that has changed. It seems, if anything, it's just a continuing problem. And it's one that as a society we need to fix. Gemma's obviously found her way. I don't think that's the way for all of us. But no, I think it's
probably not the way in general, is it?
I mean, it's definitely not the way in general, but I do think it's interesting, because not that, killing people is not the answer, attacking people is not the answer. But I do think it's interesting, because as a victim, as a lot of victims, a lot of people who've had landlords have had bad ones. So I think it does make people think, oh, well, is my bad one? Like, it's sort of, I don't know if you read other books, but it's a victim, if it's just somebody who's walking down the street, you don't think, oh, well, maybe they deserved it. And in this, it's not that nobody deserves to be murdered. I can't say that enough because I don't, but the sort of, oh, as a reader, you think, oh, well, yeah, some of those landlords are quite bad. I've just got a bad landlord story. And I think that makes it interesting.
Yeah, Leslie's given you her horrible landlord story on the stream.
Really? What's Leslie's? And I'll tell mine.
She said, yeah, I've got one as well. She said she had a horribly creepy landlord when she was a student. He used to let himself in and sleep on the sofa when he fell out with his wife. The rent was cheap, but her nerves were shredded.
Oh my, that's horrendous. I've had other people, nothing as bad as that, but people who, the landlord thinks they can just pop in because, like, well, it's my house. It's like, well, actually, I'm paying you rent for it to be my house. So mine was, I rented a flat when I was in my early 20s in Norwich, and the landlady had not told me or my friend that it came with a man who stalked the house. So he didn't stalk us, but he thought he was unwell, and he thought that a woman he knew lived in our flat, and so he would leave gifts for us outside our flat door. And when I rang the landlady, she was just like, oh, not again, as if I was bothering her by telling her that the crazy person had left, sorry, not crazy, unwell person had left wine. He left we had a clothes dryer, and he left that's in the book. I mentioned somebody getting their pants stolen from a clothesline as a throwaway line, but that is because we couldn't dry washing outside because of the person who was coming and leaving gifts. And one time he left on our clothesline a necklace. It was like two shells stuffed together, and when you opened up the shell necklace, it was stuffed with hair. And that and yeah, the landlady just hadn't thought to mention that. Why would you? So it was very cheap rent for the centre of town, though, so maybe she felt like we were both getting something out of it. She got her rent money and we got a good deal, and a stalker
for the house. Yeah, mine's not as good as that. Our student landlord didn't do all the checks that you should do. So when we reported it and they came and did the gas safety check, our gas fire had been leaking carbon monoxide.
No.
In our drafty terraced house, so we would all been okay, but we'd all joked about part of the sofa. If you sat on part of the sofa, you kind of felt really tired.
No. He does.
And it turns out that you were like maybe being slightly gassed.
Thank God for the draft.
I know.
That's horrible.
It's not a good bad landlord story. It's not as good as yours or Leslie's.
Oh no, I mean, mine was the man who was leaving the gifts was unwell, but he was never going to do us any harm. He just was unwell. But that could have killed you. That's really bad.
It was really bad. He was a really bad student landlord. He got reported like lots, but I think he still rents houses.
I mean, this is it. There's no way of stopping these people.
He
That's
needs
all.
a Gemma.
Yeah. Yeah, like somebody like that. Now, would it be so bad if Gemma went after him? Because he's just prolific. That's the dilemma the book is asking.
Yeah, and we all know why now, don't we? Because there's like all these stories. But
it's interesting. Somebody had posted my book on Instagram, and it was a very nice post. And they'd put in, in the caption for engagement, they'd asked, "Oh, does anybody have a bad landlord story?" And I was reading some of them out to my husband because some of them had bad landlord stories and they were just interesting. And a few of them were saying things like, "Oh, my landlord was great until he lost his job and chucked us out." And I'm like, "Well, that's a bad landlord. He made you homeless with no warning." It's like what makes a good landlord is such a low bar. Just, "Oh, they don't bother me. They haven't put the rent up loads. They fix things when they're broken." Like, that's the service you're paying for when you pay for your rent. That's the very bare minimum. So I think everybody who thinks they've even had a good landlord, have they just had an okay one? I think what is a good landlord is quite hard to define.
yeah, I mean, I think like friendly, fixes things, charges you a reasonable amount. That's all.
Yeah.
Like,
Doesn't try and poison you to death.
doesn't try to prove me stuff.
Was there an apology issued when you said, "Oh"?
No, they just ripped the fire out, and then there was like nothing.
Yeah. "Oh, these old houses. This is what you're getting."
And that was it. I think we painted a mural of a fireplace. Where it but, I mean, we survived. We all survived. It was fine.
I mean, the stories like that, they become like a good, you just drop into conversation. The one time you had a landlord who tried to kill you, that's what you get out of bad experiences when you're like a student age or like in your early 20s, like I was with that landlord. It's like, they're just stories now.
They're a fun story you can tell, aren't they? Like as you get older.
Yeah.
What are you going to write next? Because you can't, as much as I want to meet more of Gemma, I want to see her again in a story. I'm not sure that there is much more to tell of her story at the end of this.
I 100% agree. I've had now that the book's been out, I've had friends who've read the book and a few people have said, "Oh, well, there's got to be another one." And I just thought, no, I think it's quite clear what happens at the end of it. That's not to say that I'm sure I could do something else with her, but I don't think the current iteration of Gemma comes back again. So I have another book out. My publisher is Verve, and they are publishing my second book next March. It is set in Hamilton again. If there's anything I love, it is Hamilton. And it is about 3 different women who you meet them as children and then you follow them through adulthood through vignettes of shameful, embarrassing, horrible things happening to them and how it shapes their lives. And there's some crimes in there that get committed, but it's not quite the sort of all through it, sort of one person committing lots of crimes. And it's been very interesting trying to, because it's 3 different people and they're not Gemma, and Gemma's voice was so strong in my head for so long because she's quite particular in the way that she comes across. Writing different people took a little bit of getting used to, because I feel like writing, I don't know, I've written other books prior to Under the Hammer coming out. I hope to write many more after that. But this being the one that's getting published first and has got the most focus on it, I've thought about it the absolute most I've ever thought about anything, I think. So to disengage and become 3 different people as I'm writing has been like a challenge. But that's what I'm doing next. And then I don't think, if we meet Gemma again, I don't think it would be for a while. I think more things need to happen to her for us to see where she is.
Yes. There is a glorious moment when she's right at the beginning and she's kind of at rock bottom, like you said, where she's trying to make her rent money by selling pictures.
Yes.
Which of her feet, isn't it?
Yes. So when I was writing it, I feel like this was something when I had the idea, and the foot thing was always in the first chapter. It was always in the first. I wrote a chapter of it, I think in 2022. I wrote the first chapter of it, and the feet thing was always in it because I think at the time it was online. There was a lot of articles about people who were making, I work as a teacher by day, but I make £2,000 extra a month selling pictures of my feet. And there was this idea that it was like a really easy way to make money. And then I read an article where somebody was testing this out. So again, I don't know if this was just something that my phone was telling me was popular, because I read one article, it was sending me them all. But I read another one where somebody was testing it out, how easy is it to make money from your feet. And it was essentially saying that the ways that you would try and do this, a lot of the sites and things, people try to get free pictures from you to start off with. And so actually it just becomes you trying to bat away people who are trying to get free pictures of feet from you. And this woman tried it for a month, and I think she made, like £25, but she'd spent hours and hours of her life negotiating and talking to people. And I thought, that seems like something that this character would do, where she thinks she's got this great idea. I'm about to make my fortune from doing this thing. And actually, over the course of the book, she does make money from it, but that's not how she is paying all her bills. It becomes just like a kind of annoying side thing that she has to do to sustain herself. And that felt like it was quite fitting. And also, I think it shows you how desperate she is, because it's not that to do that kind of work you have to be desperate, but I think to decide I'm going to sell bits of myself off on the internet to strangers all of a sudden sort of speaks at a level of desperation that she's at.
I think it also adds a layer of humour to the book, because as much as it sort of talks about some quite serious subjects, it's quite humorous.
Yeah. I thought it was, I'm not a particularly serious person anyway. Like I think it's quite difficult for me to be very serious. Even when the worst things that have ever happened in my life or in my family, we all kind of laugh to get through it. And I just thought I don't want this to be like a really dire, gritty book, because those experiences exist, but that's not the experience I've had of life, really. And I don't think that's the experience for everybody, is that when bad things happen, you kind of make the most out of them. And so the way she approaches things is with an element of humour. I think also because she's so desperate, and as you see through the book, she really doesn't have anybody who's on her side. She doesn't have the time to be sad, because she's got to make money. She's got to make her rent money. And so she's got to pick herself up. And her approach is to be a bit funny, again, for the same things. If she just sat and wallowed, she says in the first chapter she doesn't have time to wallow, or she's refusing to wallow or something like that. Because you're not making money if you're wallowing. You're not sorting your life out if you're wallowing. So the humour's part of that. And I think having that lens on it as well, as she goes further and further down the route that she goes down, I think if she was seriously considering it all the time, she wouldn't do it. So I think the fact that she's got like a kind of humorous bent in the world also helps her negotiate what she's doing as well.
Have you, so you've had your launch event, you were saying about that?
Yeah, it was on Thursday at Waterstones in Sauchiehall Street. It was very exciting. Basically, everybody I know was there. It was really nice. And then there was people I didn't know too, which was thrilling. And even though it was something that was advertised, the fact that anybody I didn't know who had came to it was amazing. It wasn't many people, but it was still like people I didn't know. So that was great. And then I'm speaking in Aberdeen tomorrow at Somerville Books in Aberdeen. I think I said Aberdeen already, sorry. And then Edinburgh on Thursday at Blackwell's as well, talking about the book, which is nice. I think this was really great to have this today, because it was almost as if launch event on Thursday and my brain had kind of shut off about the launch of the book and thinking about the book. It's kind of like, okay, that's it, done now. It's in the shops. Even though it has been in the shop for weeks, because when your book gets published, they just put it out when they get it in the shop. They don't care about what date it comes out unless you're Stephen King or somebody really important. So I've been getting pictures for the last few weeks of it in shops, but now it's officially in shops. So that's very exciting.
Even though it's already been there. I know what you mean. Sometimes like I've sort of looked for launch dates for people's books, and then you go in the shop like a week or so before and it's already there.
Yeah. And I went in because I went into Sucky Street, Waterstones. Other bookshops do exist. This is just where I happened to be in. And I was looking to see if they had anything up about my event, and it was on the table. The book was on the table. And I was prepared to see the picture of myself or like a sign up or something that had my name on it, but I was not prepared to see the book. And a noise escaped me that I've never made before. I was just like, oh, it's there. So that was very exciting. And people have sent me pictures of it out in different shops, and it is very exciting that it exists. Even like I knew it existed, but it's different seeing it. It's completely outside of my control now, which is nice.
Will you be at any book festivals this year?
I am going to. This is where we see if Samantha can remember things. I'm at the old Theakston's Old Peculiar doing an author at the author dinner. I'm going to be hosting a table at that. That's so, and I'm also somewhere else doing a small, like an independent bookshop thing, and then that's in June. And I can't remember where it is because my brain's went blank. But that's all I've got confirmed so far, I think. Hopefully more. I like getting to talk about it. It's I'd never really considered this part of it. When I was writing the book, I was thinking about writing the book and making that as good as it could be. I already had my agent, so I wasn't worrying about getting an agent, but that would have been a concern. Then about getting a publisher, and then about doing the edits. So I did all that work to make the book ready for publication, but I hadn't really thought about the publication process past that. And so getting to talk to people, having conversations about it, it's so interesting hearing other people's reactions to it or what stands out to people about it. But it also just makes me think about my own intentions in a way that despite all the editing and all the rest of it, I haven't before. So like selfishly, as much as I hope people enjoy listening to me talk about the book, I find it so interesting hearing other people tell me about it. I'm like, oh yeah, it really makes me think about what I've done and why. And you see sometimes people talking about how great events were or whatever, and especially, before I had like my book deal and things like that, and you're maybe having a bit of a grumpy day and you're like, yeah, sure, whatever. It's actually so helpful and fun to like meet people. It's been really nice.
And you like Harrogate, because that is a really like welcoming sort of fun.
Yeah, I've heard people talk about it in like writer publishing podcasts, and it sounds like it's going to be very nice. I'm really looking forward to it. Have you been to it before?
Well, it's like under an hour on the train where I live, so I go every year.
Nice. Do you stay over or do you?
No, because it's very expensive to stay in Harrogate at any time of the year. Harrogate is one of those. It's a very rare part of Yorkshire, and it's very pricey.
Yeah. Is that Agatha Christie ran away?
At the Crime Festival, it's even more expensive.
Yeah.
So no.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. And also because it's summer as well, so it's that feeling of, oh, there's going to be sunshine by then. It's really lifting my spirits as well. Just the idea of going somewhere during summertime, and I've never been to like an author dinner, so I'm very excited to see what that's like. And that will be talking to people who love reading crime books. So that will be very interesting because I like reading all kinds of books. So especially if I think it's so cool that people go out of their way to find out the things that they love. So yeah, really looking forward to it.
Yeah, it should be really good. You like reading all kinds of books, would you say?
Yes.
So I always ask everyone that I interview, what have you read recently and really enjoyed? You don't have to recommend crime, you can recommend anything.
What have I been reading? I've been editing my book and preparing for publication for myself. So I've not been doing the most amount of reading I have done in a while. It's been quite limited. I'm trying to think. The thing that I've recommended all the time is, it's not a crime book, but criminal things that take place in it. And that's Hermit by Chris McQueer. Which is about an incel in Scotland, which sounds like it's going to be grim, but it's a very beautifully written book about an incel in Scotland, and about how that kind of, he gets lured into doing criminal acts through that, but it's not, like a detective mystery or anything like that. I feel like I know I've read 12 books this year because I know 12 is my Goodreads aim for the year, because I knew I was not going to read an awful lot this year. I read, talking about books that are similar to mine in terms of the fright move genre. I read Andy Osho's book, which is, the name is escaping me now, but it's about people who are trying to buy a house in London, and then they commit crime to try and bring down the property value. Is it Under Offer? Most Wanted, it's called Most Wanted. That was the last kind of crime adjacent book that I read. And it is similar because it's about the housing crisis, but it's London based and it's set in a very London focused property market and what that involves. But it's interesting. It's certainly interesting to see to read books by people who are talking about the similar topics but different, and thinking about how they would do it. And then the book that I just have read, sorry, I'm just going to list the books until you stop me. And then the last book the other last book that I really loved was Miranda July, All Fours, which I thought was great until the last quarter. But it was so good before that I didn't care that the ending of it was a bit rubbish. It was such a beautifully written book until then. So those are probably my recommendations. At the minute, I'm reading Heather Darwent's book because I'm talking to her on Thursday. But I'm only 2 chapters in, so I've got a lot of reading to do on that. I'm enjoying that as well.
You do have to read the book if you're going to talk to an author.
Yeah, because I think what I think is, again, things I never thought about while writing a book is that it really gives you an insight into that person, even if the book is nothing to do with that. Like books are fiction a lot of the time. The characters are not the writer and all the rest of it, but the choices that get made and what they've chosen to focus on inside it really does give you an insight, I think, into people. And I hadn't thought about that for myself. I had a friend today who was messaging and asking me about why I'd written something about how I described something, and I just thought, don't know, just felt good at the time, but now yeah, now forever more people, like maybe people that I know, will remember that I spoke about something in a certain way or how I approach something. And that's quite exposing in a way I hadn't expected.
Donna is said hello.
Hi, Donna.
Sorry, she's like, she also interviews authors.
All right.
So
this must be such a nice gig for you and Donna and anybody else who does the interviews to getting to talk to people and asking the questions you want to ask if you have any when you've read a book, rather than having to guess.
Genuinely one of the best things ever. The only there are two kind of downsides to it, I would say.
Okay.
There's the caveats to like it being, because there's so many good things. You get to meet like authors and read amazing books and talk to people that whose books you love. The downsides to it is like we do a lot of these, so a lot of my reading is just things for author interviews and not always everything that I want to read. If you know what I mean. Sometimes books are like calling to me and I can't.
Yeah, I don't have the same issues but I've got like a to be read pile that is in danger of killing me in my sleep because I keep just adding books to it and nothing is coming down at the minute because just
mine
stuff.
Mine is very much.
And it's so annoying, that feeling of I would love to just pick up that book, but I know I'm not going to be able to do it justice.
Yeah, and also for our book group, we don't have a limit. So like really the limit is that you're a UK-based crime author or your book is set in the UK. So that means that you can read all sorts of things and sometimes it wouldn't be a genre that you would pick.
Yeah.
Which can be great, but can also be a bit like weird.
I hope I fell into the great bit. But I mean, I'll be happy with weird as well. I'll take whatever I can get.
I thought yours was great. Very unusual for a crime book, but in a good way.
Yeah, like when you write a book, I knew that she was committing crime. It wasn't at no point does what happens that I think, oh, this is not a criminal activity that she's doing. I always knew that it was. And then to be included in crime things, I feel mildly fraudulent because I think I know she's doing crime, but I feel like there's maybe a loftier, I think of like so how many of the great authors of our time have been crime writers, and then you think, oh, I just wanted to write a book about a woman who kills landlords. I wasn't approaching it as a crime writer. So I feel quite honoured to be included in these spaces because it is a crime book and I've come to accept it. But it took me a minute to be like, oh, I guess that is what I wrote. Which I don't know if that makes me sound dense, but I think I was too close to it to appreciate that it is in fact a crime book.
You're in the right area of the UK as well, aren't you, to be writing crime up in Scotland? Yeah. There's so many great Scottish.
Yeah, I think that's what I mean, like about there's so many really, truly great Scottish crime writers that I didn't even think I was like anywhere close to that. I was writing something else. And yeah, we do it very well. There's lots of great Scottish writers who are doing crime. But yeah, again, it's not what I thought I was doing, but it's really nice that actually that is what it is, because I do enjoy reading crime. Like I really like Denise Mina's books when she's been doing her crime. I know she varies between different kind of genres and things like that, but I really enjoyed the stuff she did about Garnet Hill. Yeah, and Hamilton was always going to be the location because it's the place that I know the best in the world. And it felt like I could authentically have her going around these streets and doing what she's doing here in a way I couldn't with anywhere else. But Hamilton's always kind of like on the cusp of, you'll read a book and they'll maybe mention they drove through Hamilton, or somebody will make a snide comment about it. So it's unique in that way that it's set here. But I mean, it's a 20-minute drive away from Glasgow. It's another 20 minutes after that to Edinburgh. It's not like I'm that geographically distant from all the other great stuff that's been written.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that because obviously, like, you're from Hamilton as well.
Yeah.
Why? And I get that you're writing it because it's the area you know best, but sometimes people will avoid like the area that they know so well, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, I do know what you mean. I think so. the novel that I wrote before this that didn't get published, and I don't think it's ever good enough to get published, but it was set in London, and I lived in London when I wrote it, and I always felt kind of fraudulent writing it because I just felt like I'm saying these names rather than really imagining these places, if you know what I mean. It was kind of, it didn't feel like it needed to be in London. The story I was telling, it could have been anywhere. And then I moved back home and I started writing this, and I'd won a Scottish Book Trust New Writer Award. And they didn't give me the award and say, go off and write stuff that's only based in Scotland. But I think from the other people I met having won that, and the reading I was doing at that time was a lot of Scottish writers, and I think it just made me think, well, the book could be set in Hamilton. It doesn't need to be anywhere else. And it felt, I mean, Hamilton's not sitting here dying to be included in my book, but I felt like it's just something that never gets included in things. I just thought it'd be nice, just put it somewhere, put it here. Like a lot of fiction that focuses in Scotland, it's the cities or it's the Highlands. It's most people live in a little town like the one I'm in. I say little. If you've read the book, you'll know it's the 9th biggest place in Scotland. So like it's quite a big town, but it's most people live in a place like this rather than in the city or in a like a little beautiful village. It's just kind of like an average town. And I thought that fit into, if you're watching like a daytime TV property show, they are never in anywhere exciting because they can't afford the property in the very exciting places to make their profit on. So it kind of fit into that as well. This kind of very normal, slightly depressing, like High Street's shut down, and people just going to their jobs and coming back home again, which is what a lot of being alive is just going to work and coming home again. But it's not a place where there's like a big bustling scene of any kind. And I thought that made it quite a good canvas for the kind of backdrop of what Gemma's doing. It makes what she's doing kind of stand out as well. She's doing these horrible things in this very boring place.
You've got so your other one's also set in Hamilton. Do you think as you carry on as an author, you will keep writing books?
At my book launch, I was saying to my editor who was interviewing me that I have decided in like the last month or two that I've got my idea for my third book, and I was saying to her, it's going to be like a Hamilton trilogy. They're completely unrelated in terms of what happens in them, but I feel like that's the third book, and I think she's going to start off in Hamilton, the character there, and she's going to leave on an adventure of sorts, and that will be the end of the Hamilton is the backdrop on it. Because I think as much as I love it, there's only so many places I can see things happening here. To start off with, I don't know if you've read any Elizabeth Strout, like Olive Kitteridge. She writes these books about Olive Kitteridge, and I think there's 3 of them, maybe 4, and it's all each chapter is a different story that happens in this like little village in New England or town in New England. And Olive Kitteridge is sometimes the main character, sometimes she's a background character, but it's always in this one little location. And for a little while, I fancied myself as all of my books will be like in the same universe, like these Olive Kitteridge stories. And I just think it would bore out me. I think I could do it in an interesting way for the reader. I don't think it really it matters a little bit in Under the Hammer that it's Hamilton because that's the locations that she's going about in. The geography doesn't matter so much to the next one. It's just the town that they're from. The third one, it matters even less. But I think just for my own sanity, to do it somewhere else after that would be good.
Would you go back to sort of one of the other places you lived, maybe like Norwich or London?
It's a very good question because I already know in the third one she's going to go to Norwich because I did not enjoy living in Norwich when I was 22 years old and living in that flat. But since I have, since my brain has stopped developing and I've become an adult, I realised what a lovely place it was to be. So I would definitely like to write about it because there's lots about it that is very nice and it's very different, even just in sort of visual description, how flat it is compared to the hills of Hamilton and sort of this part of the world. I remember when I first moved to Norwich, being on the phone to my mum, and she was asking me when I was going to be back at the place I was staying, and I could see the corner, so I was like, oh, I'll be there in like 2 minutes. And 15 minutes later, I was still walking outside, and she was saying, where are you? You said you were going to be home in 2 minutes. I was like, I could see the corner, but my brain couldn't compute how long it took to walk on flat surfaces. So I was just like going up and down hills. So like even just things like that, I think there's a difference of it, and it's a very unique place. I don't know if you know Norwich very well.
It's a very random place to move to, I would imagine. I don't know it very well because my mum is from Ipswich, which is kind of the sworn enemy of Norfolk. So I've been to Suffolk quite a bit, which is very similar and very flat.
Yeah. My brain just did not compute it.
Not so much the Norfolk part because you just don't.
Yeah. Well, I moved there, and this is my little insight into daytime television. I moved there to work on the television show Trisha, because Trisha lived in Norwich, and so our office was in Norwich. And that's what led me to being there. So an interesting reason to have to move somewhere. And then Trisha got cancelled, and then I had to live out 6 more months of my lease on my flat because I'd signed up for like a whole year to live there. And so then I ended up living in Norwich for 6 months as a 22-year-old.
How very exciting.
I then moved on to make films about how to train people in care homes. It was quite a difference from the glamorous TV life that I thought I was going to have when I moved there.
And that's how because we've said that you currently make educational content.
Yeah, I make educational films for a company that makes stuff for schools to watch. It's a global company that makes films that teachers can put on in their classrooms. So yeah, I do that at the minute. And before that, I was doing like more corporate films, like films for the NHS, things like that. So like a creative day job, but not writing a novel all day kind of day job. But there's worse jobs to have.
Does it help you though? Because you're obviously going to think very creatively to sort of make content. You've got all that research, likability, all the way of like breaking it up to like make the video. Does that help you when you're writing?
Oh, I think it really helped me a lot in all kinds of ways. I think apart from just being, you know how to tell a story, and if you read a lot of books, you'll know what makes a good story anyway, because you have that critical skill just from reading a lot of books. But what I think it does in the make of the then writing a book is that I have to send my work off to get critiqued all the time at work. I send it to clients, I send it to my boss, I send it to whoever needs to see it to sign off. And I have had, both very reasonable feedback before, or I've worked for very unreasonable people who've said crazy things on films that I've made. And what it really helps is hone whether you know if something is good or not, because you have to defend whether you think it's good or not. And I think that's an amazing skill to have, because people can say what they want to me about the book, or when I've had edits back or people have read it and given me feedback, I know what feels true and what doesn't. So it's not. So I think it makes me very good at taking on feedback and also knowing where I'll say, yeah, I can make a change on that. I agree with that, or whether it's something worth fighting for. But to be honest, I've not really had to fight for anything in this editing process. But I think it just allows me to have to approach the feedback very reasonably, which I think is very difficult because even with that, when I first started sharing my writing, it feels so much more personal than something I've made with a team of people at work. No matter how much I've loved the thing that I've made at work, at least there's other people who've also made it. When it's just you that's written a story, getting feedback or rejection on that, it can be soul crushing. And I think it has toughened me up a bit. There's still things that I don't like, but I think I'm quite robust when it comes to hearing feedback on my work.
What's the feedback been like to Under the Hammer so far?
So far, I mean, the most immediate feedback, I've been tagged in some things on Instagram and things, but the most of it has been from people that I know. It's been interesting. I think a lot of people, the thing that I like the most is at the ending of it. I won't give any spoilers. At the end of it, you don't know necessarily what's happened. I think it's quite a neat ending. I think it's not left on a cliffhanger, but there is a part of the story where you are kind of left to decide yourself what happens or not. But I have told you what happens. You should know what's going to happen, but you just don't see the scene of that thing happening. And the biggest reaction I have is always just what happens to that character at the end. That's what people want to talk to me about. The reaction apart from that has been just people have told me that it's easy to read, which is nice. That people tell me things that they've laughed at, which is nice. And generally it seems positive. I am sure if anybody that I knew had negative feelings, they would keep them to themselves. At least I hope they would. But it seems to be pretty positive. And I think when I tell people what the book is about, they seem to be quite excited about the idea of it as well.
I think it's an interesting idea. I think what makes it work well in the way that you've written it is the way that you balanced it with the humour.
Yeah.
Because I think it could go too far quite easily.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But like you balanced it out and made it quite a fun.
That's I think
the right word for it. I was like going, do I want to call that book fun? But
no, I was just about to agree with you. No, I think the thing is I want you to be in a position where you're like, I wrote it so that it was quite a quick read in terms of chapter length, and that it was the kind of book you'd pick up if you're on the train or whatever, and you can get a couple of chapters in before your stopper. And I wanted it to be that you were like enjoying the book and hopefully rooting for her, and you're like, oh yeah, and then you have that moment of like almost a bit of disgust with yourself about actually maybe I shouldn't be wanting her to do well. And I do think that was something I was really concerned about the whole way of writing it, is that it would be very easy for you to not like her or not care what happens to her, or to have no sympathy or warmth towards her. And I do think that, it's easy for me to say, it's everybody else's opinion, everybody else can decide for themselves, but I do think you do want to root for her, possibly to a point, but you sort of want to go along with her and you're not repulsed by her.
No. I mean, I don't know if I overly rooted for her, but I wasn't repulsed by her.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like, there's an element of will she or won't she get caught is what's going to get found out. I hope that at least in the moments where if or that does or does not happen, that you kind of have a feeling for her, whether that's relief that maybe she's going to get stopped, or maybe she's going to change if she doesn't get caught.
Yeah, no, there's definitely moments like that throughout. It does work.
So I've just clocked how big your to be read pile is. That is gigantic.
That's not my to be read pile.
Oh no. Just your many books that you've read pile.
Yeah, it's like a red pile. Some of them are signed, and then some of them are like comics, so they're not all mine either.
I don't have anywhere to put my books yet in this house. I've got my own books obviously here because it looks pretty, but that's the dream, just to be surrounded by big piles of books that I've read and had time to read.
Yeah, this is like my section where I keep my signed books and things.
Nice. It's so cool.
Yeah, it's a cool thing to have. My to be read piles over here that you can't see. It's just chaos.
Just like a big black bin bag just filled with books.
There's just loads of books. They're all going to fall. My husband says that they're all going to fall on us one day and kill us.
I mean, what a way to go though. Better than the carbon monoxide poisoning.
Exactly. You know, if you're going to go one way or the other, under a pile of books might be the better way. If anyone's like started tuning in later, they're going to be like, "What? What was that about?" It's to be fair, we nearly died with that house, but like we weren't the worst house that landlord had rented.
Oh God. What do you know what the other worst ones were? Or...
No, some of the other ones, yeah, there were some bad places.
I'm thinking about this conversation you have where you're like, oh, we were just lucky we nearly got carbon monoxide poisoning.
Yeah.
That being the lucky one out of the group.
Yeah, it was like, it's fine. So, I'm going to sneak a quick question in and then get you to recap what the book is about. Would you like a graphic novel version of your book making?
I would be really interested in what that would be like. I had a friend who did a very lovely thing, which was paint a painting of the front cover of the book, and it's not an exact replica of it, but it's not too dissimilar of it. And he had said from the minute he saw the cover that he wanted to paint it. He is a painter, because he just really liked the visual of it, and I don't have that. I think creatively in words. I don't think about it visually, and I would love to see somebody else's interpretation of it. And I do like. I also think part of this of it being released, apart from the fact that it's published and people can read it, is like it's like a release from me, and it's no longer mine because I've written it. It's done. It's great. It's amazing. It's been published. I'm so proud. All the rest of it. And yeah, so if then somebody took it up and illustrated it, that would be amazing.
Good answer. And then we've got 2 minutes left. So remind people who are watching, if they haven't already bought it, what they are going to go away and buy.
So the book is Under the Hammer. It is, in one sentence, woman kills landlords from a television show. More detail on that is she is called Gemma. She's in her early 30s. She's at rock bottom. She's lost her job. Her boyfriend's left her for her best friend. She has no other friends, nobody else to rely on. And she ends up becoming obsessed with this television show where people become landlords. And through that sort of lens, she starts attacking landlords because she believes that they are the root of all of her problems. And she thinks that by doing that, she is going to be, for the first time in her life, doing something really good for the world.
And yeah, or at least the small area around Hamilton.
Yes. So she starts off just in Hamilton, the surrounding area in Scotland, but I think she thinks, ultimately she's doing good. She's doing more good, even though she is going after these people. She thinks she's doing more net good. Sort of one attack on a landlord then frees up however many renters to have better lives, is sort of the maths that she's doing on that.
I think she does have a moment down in my town in Leeds, doesn't she?
Yeah, she does pop down to Leeds. And I can't say too much about that, but
just for a little bit.
Yeah. She was always organised. She has a boss who she ends up getting a job, and spoiler, and she ends up having to go on a business trip to Leeds, which is derailed again by her obsession by the TV show, because that's what she ends up spending hours of her time doing. She has all these grand plans to see Leeds, and then that's what happens.
Oh, it's probably better to watch the TV show.
I have been down to Leeds several times for work, and I've always had a very nice time there.
You do. It's a good place. I've lived there a while. It's a good place to live.
Although it feels like, so this is hyper local, it does feel like every time I got off the train station, they're still doing the same work that they were doing when I left the last time.
Yeah, because I think they are.
Okay.
I think it will be there forever. Like, It's just
Yeah.
it's part of Leeds now. That's just what happens. You come to the train station, it's being worked.
Yeah, because the first time I came, I was pregnant with my daughter, who's now 10. And it was like that. And then I went again 2 years ago, and I was almost like, did I imagine the work that was here before? Because this, and I also visited at some point in between that, and it was the same. And it felt like I was the problem, like I was remembering it wrong, because I just thought I could possibly still have this barrier up.
No, that's just going to be it permanently. I don't know if that's true. I'm just making it up. And then all that's left to say after all of that is thanks so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for everybody who's watched as well. It's amazing to me that anybody would listen to me speak. So thank you very much.